Cheers, guys. Epix 911. Welcome to the Elitist Geek. This is a channel, as you guys know, mostly I talk about tech stuff and gaming related stuff, but the heart of this channel is about all things geek, and I certainly consider wrestling a geeky hobby. It's something I watched as a kid, and it's something I want to touch on real quick in this video. If it's not your normal cup of tea, just, please forgive me this, guys, but I just want to get it out there. I'm mostly tech and gaming, but we'll make an exception this time. Wrestling, let's just throw it out there. Yes, we know it's fake. Yes, we know it's scripted. And that's what I want to clarify. It's fake in terms of its scripting, absolutely. But it's very real in terms of a lot of the athletic moves that these guys pull off. And they may not punch each other for real, but they're smacking, slamming, throwing, and jumping on each other and around the ring for real. These guys easily put their bodies through as much damage as any pro sporter, whether that's the NFL or whether that's my favorite sport, hockey. I'm under no illusion that these guys bang up their frickin' bodies, but good. And if you look at the Ultimate Warrior's career, 1985 to 1998, that's a 13-year career, and it doesn't seem long in the wrestling world when you compare it to guys like Ric Flair or Hulk Hogan. But compared to a lot of pro sports, like football, that's higher than the average, the average number of seasons that an NFL player plays, and it's 365 days a year, pretty much. These guys are always on, and their bodies get punished, And as a guy who grew up with bodybuilders and around bodybuilders, I'm not going to turn this into a did he do steroids or did he not. I think it's pretty obvious and speaks for itself. And we don't know what the cause of death is, and it would be pure speculation to blame it on drugs. Certainly they may be a factor in his untimely passing, but I certainly am under no illusion that they are the factor. Like I said, these guys put their bodies through years of abuse. All that exercise, it does a lot. The heart muscle enlarges, and especially if you're going up and down in your weight a lot, right? The joint damage, the ligament damage that you do. So Ultimate Warrior, my hats off to you, literally and figuratively. I definitely was in shock. I grew up watching wrestling here in Canada. We had an awesome local circuit out of Vancouver, cheesy as all hell, all-star wrestling, but damn if it wasn't fun and engaging. We had the wonderful Ed Whalen, whose famous line, "In the meantime and in between time, it's time for another edition of Stampede Wrestling," was legendary. And the amount of wrestlers that the Canadian circuits pumped out, like Stampede, whether it's Bret Hart, Davey Boy Smith, the British Bulldogs, Dynamite Kid, lots of talent came from local wrestling circuits. And there may have been a falling out with the Ultimate Warrior and Vince McMahon, but you know what? For every guy you showed me that's best buds with Vince McMahon, I can show you a wrestler who hated his guts or at one time in his career didn't get along with him. Whether we're talking about Macho Man, whether we're talking about Hulk Hogan, whether we're talking about Jake the Snake, whether we're talking about Ultimate Warrior. It was just nice to see that he had his last moment to shine in front of the fans at the Hall of Fame induction, to hear that booming voice of the Ultimate Warrior praising the fans for their dedication and loyalty, and even his appearance Monday. So it's definitely with sadness. I'm going to tip a beer and have a moment of silence for the Ultimate Warrior later on tonight. But Still remember watching him. I still remember watching him, and I consider when I watched kind of the golden age when wrestling was at its most popular commercially that it had been in the decades before. And I don't mean this in a sexist way, but to me, wrestling, when it started out, I think it was always soap opera for guys, right? It was everything guys like in drama, written into storylines that dragged on from episode to episode, with raw human emotions involved, every bit as much as soap operas when they started were written primarily for the female demographic. So, of course, there's female wrestling fans, and of course, there's guys who watch soap operas. I'm talking about how it started. And, the acting that these guys do and the work they've done. You got to admire that. I enjoyed it as a kid. I wasn't as hardcore as some friends. I had one buddy, who had a stack about 5 feet high of wrestling magazines. And those magazines, they would deal with the most obscure wrestling circuits in the U.S., and the grudge matches that these guys had and the bloodletting and, even that stuff. A lot of that's real. And some of it's blood capsules. Some of that is really guys, cutting themselves on the forehead with razors because you will bleed profusely. And they've got the scars to show it. So, anyways, I will end it there. I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge the Ultimate Warrior. He was definitely in my top 10 wrestlers of all time. Of course, that nod has to go to Dynamite Kid. Well, Dynamite Kid would be second. Macho Man Randy Savage was probably number one. Really close. And for all of you saying, what the fuck? Who the hell is Dynamite Kid? He's only one of the best wrestlers of all time. If you look at some of Dynamite Kid's matches, specifically his matches against Tiger Mask, they were epic affairs. Dynamite Kid and Tiger Mask were that, especially Dynamite Kid, he was that blend of wrestler. He brought the best elements of Mexican, Japanese, and North American wrestling together. He was as dynamic as the Japanese, as aerial as the Mexicans, and as storyline intensive as the North Americans in terms of building and developing a persona. Not as flashy as some of the Mexican and Japanese counterparts, but like I said, he borrowed elements of that and he fused them all together. So, if anything comes out of this, hopefully more people will get to experience the Ultimate Warrior in his heyday by looking up some of his better known matches, like his WrestleMania defeat of Hulk Hogan. And take a sec to look up some Dynamite Kid stuff. Again, Dynamite Kid versus Tiger Mask. They're on YouTube. They're epic. Well, guys, Ultimate Warrior, rest in peace, brother. Rest in peace. Cheers.